We grow up learning that poisons are dangerous substances we should never come close to. The very word poison conjures images of skull and crossbones warnings, hazmat suits, and something instantly fatal with the slightest exposure. Substances like mercury fall firmly into that category. Just 200 milligrams, an amount smaller than a pinch of salt, is enough to end a person's life if swallowed. Then there's polonium, one of the deadliest materials known to humanity. A single gram, if vaporized and dispersed, could potentially extinguish the lives of 50 million people. These are the obvious killers, the notorious names in the world of toxicity. Yet what might surprise you is that ordinary, everyday things, the very things we casually consume, can also become lethal under the right conditions. Take caffeine, for example. Most of us sip it daily without a second thought. We drink it to shake off grogginess in the morning, to sharpen our concentration during long work hours, or to keep ourselves alert on a late-night drive. But hidden behind the familiar comfort of that steaming mug of coffee is a dangerous reality. Enough caffeine can kill. Scientists estimate that 70 cups of coffee contain enough of this stimulant to fatally poison a 70-kilogram adult. That's roughly the weight of an average man or woman. While most people would feel jittery and anxious after just 4 or 5 cups, the idea that pushing the limit could send the heart into erratic, potentially fatal rhythms shows how thin the line between comfort and catastrophe really is. And if coffee isn't your preferred drink, perhaps you reach for something stronger: alcohol. For centuries, it has been part of human culture, from celebratory toasts to casual nights out with friends. Yet, in large enough quantities, this common beverage becomes just as dangerous as any toxin. Around 13 consecutive shots of hard liquor consumed without pause can overwhelm the body. Alcohol is what's known as a depressant. It slows the central nervous system, dulls responses, and quiets the very regions of the brain that keep us alive. Breathing, heartbeat, consciousness. These vital functions become suppressed until they shut down entirely. That's why alcohol poisoning kills thousands of people every year. A stark reminder that the difference between a social drink and a deadly overdose is measured in just a handful of glasses. Water, though, seems like the ultimate symbol of safety. It is essential to life, the very substance we're made of. Our bodies are 60% water, and every cell relies on it to function. But even this life-giving liquid can become deadly when consumed in excessive amounts. Drinking about 6 liters in a short period overwhelms the delicate balance of salt and water in the bloodstream. The kidneys, which usually filter and regulate fluid levels, simply cannot keep up. This causes water to move into the brain cells, swelling them like balloons. The skull leaves no room for expansion, so the pressure builds, leading to splitting headaches, disorientation, seizures, comas, and in the most tragic cases, death. It is a paradox. Too little water leads to dehydration, yet too much floods the body from within. The dangers don't stop with overhydration. Denying the body water or overloading it with salt leads to a condition called hypernatremia. Imagine consuming 48 teaspoons of table salt all at once. That flood of sodium pulls water out of the body's cells, leaving them shrunken and unable to function. Nerve cells misfire, muscles cramp, and the brain itself suffers from electrical chaos. Convulsions follow, then unconsciousness, and without immediate intervention, death. Salt, the same substance sprinkled casually onto fries or popcorn, becomes a weapon against the body in excess. Even oxygen, the invisible gas that fuels every heartbeat, can turn from life-giver to life-taker through absence. Hold your breath for 4 minutes, and the lack of oxygen is enough to cause severe and irreversible brain damage. Stretch it to 6 minutes, and death is likely. This is why drowning victims or people who collapse from suffocation often suffer catastrophic injury even if resuscitated. Yet astonishingly, the human body can sometimes push beyond these limits. Free divers, athletes who plunge into the depths of the ocean without breathing equipment, have trained themselves to hold a single breath for extraordinary amounts of time. In record-breaking cases, some individuals have remained underwater for more than 20 minutes, a feat that borders on the miraculous. But such endurance is the rare exception. For most of us, even a short interruption of airflow carries terrifying consequences. And then there are fruits, symbols of health and natural goodness. Who would expect danger from a cherry? Bite into one, savor the sweetness, and all seems perfectly harmless. But hidden inside the hard stone at its center lies a lethal secret. Cherry pits, when chewed or crushed, release cyanide, a chemical infamous for its ability to stop the body from using oxygen. Just 1 or 2 ground pits contain enough of this compound to put a person at risk. Cyanide works by blocking a key enzyme, cytochrome C oxidase, which cells require to process oxygen. Without that ability, it's as if the air you breathe is suddenly useless. Every organ begins to suffocate on a cellular level, even while your lungs continue to inhale. The danger isn't limited to cherries either. Similar seeds and pits, like those in apricots, peaches, or apples, carry smaller amounts of the same compound. The human struggle with oxygen extends even further. At sea level, most of us breathe without effort, hardly noticing the rhythm of inhale and exhale. But climb high enough into the world's tallest mountains, and oxygen becomes so scarce that survival itself teeters on the edge. At around 8,000 meters above sea level, the concentration of oxygen in the air is too low for the body to adjust. This region has earned the chilling nickname, the death zone. Climbers who linger there for too long begin to deteriorate rapidly, their brains and organs starved of fuel. Confusion, hallucinations, and extreme fatigue set in, making even the smallest movement exhausting. Without supplemental oxygen or a swift descent, the body simply shuts down. Not all dangers are from deprivation. Sometimes it's our indulgences that hold hidden risks. Take chocolate, adored across the globe, from luxurious truffles to simple candy bars. For humans, the stimulant chemical in chocolate, theobromine, is usually harmless in small to moderate amounts. But if consumed in astronomical quantities, it too can be fatal. It would take close to 1,000 milligrams per kilogram of body weight to reach lethal levels in humans. For the average adult, that translates to the staggering equivalent of eating around 85 chocolate bars in one sitting. Of course, no one is likely to attempt such a feat. Still, the knowledge that something so pleasurable could, in massive doses, end a life, casts it in a different light. And for pets, especially dogs, theobromine is far more dangerous, which is why chocolate is considered poisonous to them. Modern substances carry similar paradoxes. Marijuana, a plant with both cultural and medicinal uses, illustrates how dose makes the poison. Smoking small amounts generally produces no lethal effects, but consuming vast quantities in edible form could. Scientists estimate that a person would need to ingest around 22 kilograms of marijuana for it to reach a potentially fatal dose. That amount is so absurdly high, it becomes nearly impossible to achieve. Yet, it underscores the principle. Even substances viewed as relatively safe can turn lethal if pushed far enough. The line between nourishment and poison, between remedy and killer, is thinner than many realize. The same cup of coffee that fuels your morning could, multiplied many times over, become the very thing that stops your heart. The glass of wine enjoyed with dinner can soothe or silence forever, depending on the amount. Water sustains life until it drowns the brain from the inside. Salt seasons food until it scorches the cells with dehydration. Oxygen, ever present, grants vitality until it vanishes, leaving only stillness. Seeds of fruit, sweet and innocent, conceal a hidden venom. Chocolate, comfort in a wrapper, harbors a chemical that, in massive abundance, overwhelms. Marijuana, a plant celebrated and vilified, rests on the razor's edge of harmlessness and harm. And this is only the beginning. Nature and science are filled with countless examples where common things harbor uncommon dangers. The lesson woven through each case is simple but profound. It is not only the substance itself that matters, but the quantity. A tiny shift in dose transforms sustenance into sabotage. Our survival hinges on a delicate balance, maintained not by eliminating everything dangerous, but by respecting the thresholds that separate healing from harm. When people think of danger, they often picture dramatic scenarios. Venomous snakes slithering through the jungle, shadowy assassins with exotic poisons, or radioactive clouds drifting ominously across the sky. Yet the truth is that peril often hides in plain sight, disguised in the foods, drinks, and everyday substances we interact with constantly. The mystery of life lies in balance, and nowhere is that more evident than in the razor-thin line between nourishment and destruction. Consider the human body itself. Our biology is an orchestra of chemistry conducted with astonishing precision. Each heartbeat depends on a delicate equilibrium of electrolytes. Each thought relies on neurotransmitters firing in balance. And every muscle movement requires the perfect mix of calcium and sodium flowing in and out of cells. Disturb that harmony, and the body's song turns chaotic. This is why even the most familiar things can, when consumed in excess or deprived in deficit, become every bit as lethal as the most infamous poisons. Take sugar. Sweetness is practically synonymous with comfort and reward. We associate it with childhood treats, celebratory cakes, and the simple pleasure of a candy bar after a long day. Yet sugar in large enough doses is no less destructive than salt. Ingest enormous quantities at once, and the blood becomes overwhelmed with glucose. The pancreas can't produce enough insulin to compensate, leading to dangerous spikes that push the body toward hyperglycemic shock. Cells starve as they fail to absorb energy, while organs struggle against the onslaught. Over the long term, of course, sugar quietly carves out its damage, eroding veins, straining the heart, and setting the stage for diabetes. But even in the short term, a reckless binge can shock the system in ways few people realize. Then there's nutmeg, the humble spice often sprinkled into holiday drinks or baked goods. Harmless at a pinch, delightful for flavor, but in high doses, it becomes an outright hallucinogen. Consuming 2 or 3 tablespoons can flood the body with a compound called myristicin. What follows is a roller coaster of symptoms: nausea, dizziness, paranoia, and in extreme cases, organ failure. The same spice that adds warmth to your latte can, taken in excess, trigger hallucinations vivid enough to mimic powerful narcotics. Ancient healers once knew of nutmeg's darker side and used it sparingly. But in the modern kitchen, its hidden potency often goes unrecognized. Even air itself, the invisible lifeline we draw in every second, can betray us under certain conditions. Oxygen, though essential, becomes toxic when concentrations rise too high. Divers who descend deep beneath the ocean's surface encounter this paradox firsthand. At great depths, the increased pressure transforms oxygen from friend to foe, leading to oxygen toxicity. Seizures, tunnel vision, and loss of consciousness strike without warning, often with fatal results if not managed properly. On the flip side, an absence of oxygen, whether through suffocation, drowning, or high-altitude exposure, starves the brain within minutes. Thus, our most basic need illustrates the principle yet again. Survival is not about abundance, but balance. Look at medicine. Aspirin, for instance, is a staple in countless households. A single small tablet can soothe a headache or reduce the risk of heart attack. But consume a bottle, and the result is catastrophic. Aspirin poisoning causes vomiting, confusion, organ damage, and in severe cases, death. The very pill that extends lives in moderation cuts them short in excess. The same is true for countless medications, from acetaminophen to ibuprofen, where therapeutic doses walk hand in hand with toxic thresholds. Hospitals around the world treat thousands of cases of accidental overdose every year, stark proof of how razor-thin the margin can be. Another common culprit is vitamin A. In modest amounts, it strengthens eyesight, supports the immune system, and helps maintain healthy skin. But too much vitamin A accumulates in the liver, slowly poisoning the body. Arctic explorers learned this the hard way when they ate the livers of polar bears, which are packed with massive concentrations of the vitamin. Nausea, dizziness, hair loss, and eventually liver failure struck with devastating swiftness. Something meant to preserve health became a vicious toxin simply because the dosage crossed the invisible threshold from helpful to harmful. Alcohol, as mentioned earlier, is another everyday example, but it bears repeating in a broader sense. It is not just hard liquor that poses risks. Beer, wine, cocktails, each contains ethanol, the central nervous system depressant. Drink responsibly, and it fosters relaxation. They drink recklessly, and the brainstem itself, the control tower of the body, is silenced. Motor skills vanish, memory lapses, and the respiratory drive falters. 13 consecutive shots may be lethal, but even lower amounts, spread across hours, can bring the same fate if the liver cannot keep up with metabolizing the alcohol. Here lies another truth. Time matters as much as quantity. What the body processes slowly can sometimes be endured, while a flood at once can overwhelm it entirely. Plants, too, harbor their own arsenal of hidden dangers. Rhubarb, a staple in pies and jams, has leaves packed with oxalic acid. Eat enough of them, and crystals form in the kidneys, leading to painful stones or even kidney failure. Cassava, a root used in many tropical regions, contains natural cyanide compounds. Only by soaking, fermenting, or cooking properly can the toxins be neutralized. In places where cassava is eaten without proper preparation, entire villages have fallen victim to cyanide poisoning. These examples highlight that nature, in its wisdom, arms plants with chemical defenses, ones that humans must respect and adapt to if they wish to benefit without consequence. Even household items we rarely consider hold their share of dangers. Take toothpaste. A pea-sized dab is safe, effective, and necessary for dental health. But the fluoride it contains, consumed in large enough amounts, can cause stomach distress, convulsions, or worse. Detergents, cleaning sprays, even hand sanitizers, everyday items that protect us from germs or dirt, become life-threatening if swallowed. Each is a reminder that familiarity should never be mistaken for harmlessness. But let us step back for a moment and see the bigger picture. All of these examples, the caffeine in coffee, the ethanol in alcohol, the sodium in salt, the sugar in sweets, the theobromine in chocolate, the cyanide in cherry pits, point to the same universal lesson. It is dosage, not substance, that defines poison. This concept, known as the dose makes the poison, was first recognized centuries ago by Paracelsus, often called the father of toxicology. He understood that anything, no matter how benign, could become dangerous if taken in the wrong amount. Water, oxygen, vitamins, spices, all essential at one level, all fatal at another. What makes this truth so striking is how it parallels other aspects of human life. Just as our bodies need balance in chemistry, our minds and spirits need balance in behavior. Too much of anything, work, pleasure, isolation, stimulation, throws the system into chaos. Overindulgence is a slow poison, while complete deprivation is another. Moderation, then, is not weakness, but survival. To live wisely is to walk that line, to savor without surrendering, to respect the thresholds built into both biology and existence. And yet, balance is easier said than achieved. Temptation surrounds us at every corner. The allure of more sugar, more alcohol, more caffeine, more comfort, pushes us to test our limits. We imagine we are invincible until the body reminds us otherwise. But knowledge is power. Understanding that even the safest things carry hidden dangers grants us the wisdom to step back, to measure, to appreciate without abusing. Picture this: a person climbing a mountain, their body straining with every step as oxygen thins. Ahead lies the summit, dazzling and inviting. But stay too long in the death zone, and the mountain extracts its price. The climber who respects the limits lives to tell the story. The one who ignores them may never return. Life works the same way. Every pleasure, every sustenance, every habit carries its altitude, its point of diminishing return. Knowing where that line lies is what keeps us alive. Even animals teach us this lesson. Dogs and cats, our beloved companions, react differently to substances we handle daily. Chocolate, safe enough for us in small amounts, is a lethal poison for them because their bodies cannot metabolize theobromine efficiently. Grapes and raisins, harmless to us, can cause kidney failure in dogs. Onions, garlic, and xylitol, the artificial sweetener, are all deadly to pets. In their vulnerability, we see our own. Because in truth, we too are vulnerable, just at different thresholds. The paradox of poisons is that they remind us of our fragility and our resilience all at once. Fragile, because so little separates safety from disaster. Resilient, because our bodies constantly walk that tightrope, balancing chemicals, absorbing shocks, and maintaining equilibrium with extraordinary precision. Every heartbeat, every breath, every sip of water or bite of food is proof that our bodies are master chemists, capable of transforming danger into survival. So long as we respect the limits. So next time you reach for a coffee, pour yourself a drink, or sprinkle salt over your meal, remember the hidden power lying within. Not to fear it, but to appreciate it. To recognize that life itself is a balance of opposites: nourishment and poison, abundance and scarcity, risk and reward. And to understand that thriving is not about avoiding every danger, but about living within the thresholds where life flourishes. Danger often wears a disguise. It hides beneath the familiar, cloaked in comfort, waiting for the moment we forget the principle that defines all life: balance. By now, it is clear that poisons are not only found in sinister vials or laboratory flasks. They dwell in kitchens, medicine cabinets, and even in the very air around us. To truly grasp this paradox is to see the world with sharper eyes, to recognize that safety is not the absence of risk, but the art of respect. Think of carbon monoxide, sometimes called the silent killer. It has no smell, no color, no taste, yet it claims lives every winter. A malfunctioning heater, a poorly ventilated stove, or a car left running in a closed garage can fill the air with this invisible gas. Carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin in the blood with an affinity over 200 times stronger than oxygen. Once bound, it locks onto red blood cells, refusing to let go, starving the body of oxygen. Victims slip into unconsciousness without ever realizing they were in danger. It is a chilling reminder that even the air we trust can turn into a weapon when chemistry shifts against us. Nitrogen, another invisible presence, is equally deceptive. Our atmosphere is nearly 80% nitrogen, and we breathe it constantly without harm. Yet, in enclosed spaces, when oxygen is displaced by pure nitrogen, the result is suffocation. Pilots, divers, and astronauts know this danger well. In the wrong environment, nitrogen builds up in the bloodstream, leading to a condition divers call the bends, where bubbles form inside tissues and joints, causing agony and sometimes death. It illustrates how even an element that makes up most of our atmosphere can betray us if encountered in the wrong balance. Let's return to food for a moment, because the pantry is a museum of paradoxes. Potatoes, a staple in diets worldwide, become dangerous when exposed to light for too long. Their skins turn green from chlorophyll, a harmless pigment, but beneath lies solanine, a natural toxin. Eating too many green potatoes leads to nausea, vomiting, and neurological effects. Kidney beans, too, contain lectins that, when undercooked, can cause intense food poisoning. Raw almonds of certain varieties harbor cyanide compounds, requiring special treatment before they are safe for consumption. Again and again, nature reveals her dual nature. She nourishes, but she also warns. Consider clove oil, cinnamon, or peppermint oils, ingredients we associate with pleasant aromas or home remedies. These essential oils, concentrated and potent, can cause liver damage or seizures if consumed in large doses. Children are especially vulnerable, as their smaller bodies cannot handle the overload. Here, the very scents that soothe or heal in moderation can overwhelm in excess. Then there is the allure of energy drinks. Marketed as sources of vitality, they are often loaded with caffeine and other stimulants. A single can may be safe, but combine several in quick succession, and the bloodstream becomes a storm of chemicals. The heart races, blood pressure soars, and in some cases, cardiac arrest follows. Stories circulate every year of young people collapsing after consuming too many of these beverages. The marketing promises energy, but the biology delivers a lesson. Fuel can become fire when consumed without care. Think also about nut oils and peanut butter. While harmless to many, for a percentage of the population, they are among the deadliest substances imaginable. Severe allergies turn a single bite into a medical emergency. The immune system, mistaking harmless proteins for enemies, unleashes a cascade of reactions that close airways and plunge blood pressure. Without immediate treatment, anaphylaxis can be fatal. For those affected, the presence of nuts is every bit as menacing as mercury or arsenic. This brings us to an even larger truth. Danger is not universal. What kills one species leaves another untouched. Chocolate poisons dogs, but delights humans. Grapes, onions, and xylitol devastate canine bodies, but slide harmlessly through ours. Alcohol wipes out insects in doses that barely affect us. Even within humanity, genetics create variations. Some individuals process alcohol quickly, while others lack the enzymes to break it down, making even a small amount devastating. Lactose intolerance, gluten sensitivity, peanut allergies, all examples of how our individual biology defines what is safe and what is poisonous. Beyond biology, environment plays its role. High-altitude climbers battle oxygen scarcity, but those born in the Himalayas or Andes thrive in such conditions because their bodies adapt across generations. Arctic peoples traditionally consume diets high in fats that would strain the hearts of others, yet they flourish because evolution has tuned their systems. The lesson is profound. Poison is not always absolute. It is relative, shaped by who we are, where we live, and how our bodies function. Now let us step into the realm of radiation, one of the most misunderstood hazards of all. Radiation is not a substance you can taste or smell, yet it permeates our lives. We bask in the sun's rays, which warm and sustain us, but overexposure burns skin, damages DNA, and seeds cancers. Bananas, rich in potassium, contain a tiny amount of radioactive potassium-40. Eat one and nothing happens. Eat thousands at once, and the accumulated radiation would become significant. Radiation therapy, used carefully, destroys cancer cells and saves lives. Yet uncontrolled exposure from accidents or weapons devastates entire populations. Once again, balance determines whether radiation heals or harms. Even sound can become a poison. At gentle levels, music uplifts and inspires. But when amplified beyond endurance, sound transforms into a weapon. Prolonged exposure to noise above 100 decibels damages hearing irreversibly. At 200 decibels, sound waves themselves become lethal, tearing tissues and destroying lungs. Military forces have experimented with sonic weapons, proving that even vibrations in the air can be turned against the human body. Light, too, follows this paradox. Soft sunlight nurtures life, sets circadian rhythms, and lifts moods. Yet ultraviolet rays, when overindulged, scar the skin and spark mutations. Lasers, concentrated beams of light, perform delicate surgeries in one context and burn through steel in another. What nourishes at one level annihilates at another. These examples stretch further than science. They reflect truths about how we live, how we behave, and how we make choices. Just as caffeine sharpens the mind until it overwhelms the heart, ambition drives us until it tips into obsession. Just as salt seasons food until it scorches cells, desire sweetens life until it corrodes. The physical principles of toxicity mirror the spiritual and emotional principles of existence. Too little leads to weakness. Too much leads to collapse. So what lesson do poisons really teach us? They remind us that survival is not guaranteed by avoiding risk, but by managing it. The coffee that energizes becomes fatal at 70 cups. The water that sustains life becomes a killer at 6 liters too quickly. The oxygen that fuels every thought becomes toxic when concentrated. Every example whispers the same truth. Control, not fear. Respect, not excess. To live well, then, is to cultivate awareness. Awareness that even the safest things carry shadows. Awareness that strength is not in indulgence, but in restraint. Awareness that nature designed us to walk a narrow path where balance, not abundance, keeps us alive. Imagine a world where every action, every choice, is measured with this understanding. Where people drink responsibly, savor sugar sparingly, respect the dangers of excess salt, and honor the limits of caffeine. Imagine climbers who know when to descend, divers who understand their limits, patients who heed dosages, and parents who protect children from hidden hazards. Such a world would not eliminate risk, but it would minimize unnecessary tragedy. At its core, this perspective inspires something deeper than caution. It inspires gratitude. Gratitude that we can sip coffee without fear, so long as we respect its boundaries. Gratitude that we can enjoy chocolate, knowing it is harmless to us in moderation, though deadly to pets. Gratitude for water, for air, for salt, for light, for all the forces that sustain life when embraced wisely. Gratitude that we are alive at all, walking the razor's edge between too little and too much every single day. Life is not about eliminating poisons. It is about recognizing that everything carries the potential for harm, and everything carries the potential for good. The very same substances that heal can also hurt. The very same elements that destroy can also sustain. The lesson of poisons is, ultimately, the lesson of life. Balance is everything. So when you next take a sip, a bite, a breath, pause. Remember the invisible lines that divide sustenance from sabotage. Remember that moderation is not dull or restrictive, but the secret to survival. And remember that thriving in this fragile, extraordinary existence means respecting the doses, respecting the limits, and walking the fine line where danger and safety meet. Because in the end, poison is not out there. It is here, in everything, in every choice, in every moment. And it is only by understanding that truth that we truly learn how to live.